As a person who likes to get things done on his own, it's always very upsetting to see upwards of, 5, 6 different scripts that have just not completed yet, and whether that's been from lack of motivation, or simply I run out of things to say, or whether the fact that I really am not a fan of punching over a computer and typing things. And so I said to myself, what is it that I could do where I could still review things, I can still talk to you all lovely people that love watching my stuff, apparently, and allow me to continue to do reviews. And I said, well, I can always just do them unscripted. And the thought of that always kind of worried me because, when you're doing a podcast is two people talking to one another. But a review is something that seems a bit more, it seems more professional, it seems less laid back than a podcast. And I said, well, how about we stop having these two conflicting tones almost between the reviews and the podcast, and we just kind of merge them all together. So I'm thinking about doing these reviews now as a one-person podcast, if you will, something that I hope you guys will enjoy, and if not, please let me know in the comments below. And so that's kind of why I'm doing this. That way I can get the reviews out to you, I can just talk about the things that I love talking about, and I don't have to worry about writing them and getting my points out that way. I can just, to quote the Joker,
do things.
So with that, I'm going to use this time to recap all the movies that I have not been able to review, as they've just been, uncompleted scripts. So let's go way back to the start of July. July 1st. And when I went to the Thursday night showing of the BFG, which was the latest film done by famous director Steven Spielberg. Jaws, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones. He's one of the greatest. He's one of my influences. If it wasn't for Christopher Nolan, Spielberg would be my favorite. And so I was excited to walk into the BFG because this is the first time since maybe, Tintin, that we were going to get, whimsical Spielberg. I was really hoping for the equivalent of Scorsese's Hugo, because Scorsese is a director that can do all these gritty and dark and depressing things, and then you watch Hugo, and it's so uplifting and cheerful and technically masterful, but then you watch the BFG, and it is all those things. It is beautiful, it is kind of profound in how they talk and how simplistic it is, yet it's boring. And I think that's the biggest crime the film has. It's simply uninteresting to watch. Mark Rylance is good. The main girl, who I'm gonna look up now, I'm gonna probably edit in her name later, Ruby Barnhill, I definitely knew that. She plays Sophie, and she does a fantastic job. Everything about this movie, the individual contents, are well done. It's very whimsical, it's very charming. The special effects, while sometimes very CGI-ish, are incredible, but the problem is, it doesn't amount to anything. It's a big film about nothing, and by the time you have the Queen of England in one giant farting scene, you realize just how indifferent you can feel this whole thing, and slowly but surely that indifference kind of turned to anger, and by the end I was just like, why did I see this movie? So, the BFG, I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 10, and that'll amount to, I don't know, I'll give it a D+, not a fan of the BFG. Righto, so I'm either a raging misogynist or a disappointed fanboy. Okay, so the Ghostbusters reboot. I saw the original Ghostbusters for the first time in its entirety in 6 or 7 years, about a week or so before I saw the reboot in preparation for the Movie Mania podcast, link below. At which point I said, this is a great movie, the characters hold up, it's fun, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's just a good, well-rounded film. And I felt that way about the Ghostbusters reboot for about 40 minutes. The first half or so, maybe the first third of the film, felt like they were doing Ghostbusters, but they were doing it in a new way. They weren't just remaking Ghostbusters, because that's what Ghostbusters 2 was, from what I can remember. It's been a long time. Ghostbusters 2 is essentially just a remake of the first one. So the Save Off Marshall Man, it's a Statue of Liberty, and the kind of people don't like them again. But with this one, with the remake, I felt like we weren't getting a Bill Murray type, we weren't getting a Dan Aykroyd type, we weren't getting a Harold Ramis type at first, and we weren't just getting, the black guy that kind of has to join along. And I felt like we were finally getting something different. Kristen Wiig, when she's first introduced, she's not like any of the original cast. And there's this dynamic of, oh, we have to get the team back together, but we didn't see the previous team together kind of thing, and that always interests me, for her to be the introduction into the world, and the comedy was working, the opening scene is great, but ultimately the film, much like my review here, it just fell apart by the end. For every good thing, there was a bad thing. You know, for every Leslie Jones really great and kind of grounded and almost human, you know, in a world full of cartoons, the most human performance, there was Kate McKinnon, who I don't understand what many of my friends and reviewers out there seem to love about Kate McKinnon. She, to me, was the worst part of the entire film. She seemed to never know exactly what movie she was in. She always seemed to be lost and confused. She always seemed to want to be some kind of like comedy magician where she just had to move around and do a bunch of Alakazam type movements and mannerisms that 9 times out of 10 did not work. There's maybe 4 or 5 times where I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, but that's because it was more subtle. But there's a difference between subtlety and annoyance. It's the equivalent of like shaking keys around in the frame. You're having the movie happen and someone's just shaking keys off on the side of the frame, off on the right side of the frame, someone's just shaking keys in your face, and it's like, that's not entertaining, that's just annoying. But then again, for every Kate McKinnon, there's a Chris Hemsworth, but yet they took it one step too far to where he's no longer just a dumb blonde. He feels no borderline special needs. And that just kind of bothered me because what you have heard is true, because every man is either an idiot or a jerk. And I feel like there needs to be a balance. You don't have to have all the women be great because all the men are terrible. There's a balance. There's movies like 10 Cloverfield Lane or Star Wars Force Awakens where you can have strong female characters and strong male characters. In fact, you don't even have to worry about the fact that they're females or males, just to make them all strong characters. But that was Ghostbusters. I didn't hate the movie. I thought it was fine, and if you hate me for that, then that's whatever. I give Ghostbusters a solid, I'll go B-. You know, it was just on the cusp of being not good. In some aspects, it very much saved itself. It may be heresy to say, but I do believe that Star Trek Beyond is a fantastic film. I know, as a Star Wars fan, why could I say something like this? Trey, you must now hate Star Wars. No, it's alright. You can love both. I know plenty of people out there, plenty of probably really cool people that love both Star Wars and Star Trek. That being said, Star Trek Beyond is truly incredible. Some of the things that they do in this film, first of all, I suppose I should give a lot of credit to director Justin Lin, who, for most of the film's marketing campaign leading up to its release, right from when the director was announced, Justin Lin, known for the Fast and Furious films, I've been giving him the most heat because I felt as though he was the wrong choice to do a Star Trek movie, because say what you want about Star Trek Into Darkness, you can at least feel the sense of sci-fi futuristic glossiness that J.J. Abrams had with his style of filmmaking, the very sleek, very always kind of moving, the very energetic, fast-paced filmmaking style of J.J. Abrams, and not opposed to this kind of rock and roll, heavy metal, almost, you know, stupid tones and stupid direction that Justin Lin usually gave to the Fast and Furious movies. But I have to say it, he really stepped up here. I was wrong to judge him in that way. He very much stepped up and proved himself as a competent filmmaker. Is there some of the Fast and Furious stuff in the film? Yes, but in more of the sense that he took what he learned with Fast and Furious, as opposed when making the movie about a group and about a quote-unquote family. Vin Diesel, yeah, he uses that and he makes that his own in the Star Trek. He's able to create a sense of love and a sense of unity and a sense of, this is a crew, this is a family now, the crew of the Enterprise. And he's able to use the great performances given by, you know, Chris Pine, Carl Urban, that's his name, and especially that of Zachary Quinto as Spock, to create this really well-balanced, really ultimately fun, but not fun in the sense of that, oh, the movie sucks, but I had a fun time. The movie was poorly made, but I had a fun time, so it's okay. More of this movie was so well done, I was able to have a fun time kind of fun. Like your movies like your Kingsman or your Avengers. And I give a lot of credit to him because a lot of the camera work is well done. A lot of pretty much all of the action with the exception of some hand-to-hand stuff. But overall, just a well-rounded, well done, well executed, very excited for the sequel. Hopefully, here's hoping that they get someone like Lin to come back for the sequel. I'm not sure if I want him back for the sequel, because usually when directors come back to these Star Trek sequels, sorry, tap my mic, it's not it's not as good, which is why we get something like Into Darkness. Maybe if you can get someone like Doug Liman, who I think is off of the Gambit movie, get like a Doug Liman who did Edge of Tomorrow to come in and do this, because I feel like he could really breathe life into the franchise. This could be something like Mission Impossible. This is something that Paramount probably needs right now, where every movie in the series just continues to be this really awesome, fun adventure like your Mission Impossible. So yeah, I give Star Trek Beyond an A. Yeah, an A. The genre of horror is always one that is intriguing to me, solely because it's always either good or bad. I've never really seen a horror film that's somewhere in the middle. I've always usually seen, because I feel like horror is that concept that you either get or you don't. It's very hard, I think, to do mediocre horror. I think the closest we've gotten to a mediocre horror film is like Paranormal Activity 2, but I feel like that's more my takes than how the movie was done in general. You either get, your Ouijas and your Paranormal Activity marked ones, your standard, nonsensical, awful, modern day, CGI filled, or found footage, stupid modern day horror films, or you get your Conjurings, your Halloweens, your Exorcists, and now your Lights Out. Because the thing about horror is that you can always tell right away when a director understands how to make something scary, when they know what their film is doing, when they know that their film is horrifying to watch for an audience. And that's exactly what Lights Out is. Lights Out, it's the story, you've seen the trailers, the light goes out, the figure appears, lights go back on, the figure's gone. The figure can only appear when it's dark. Classic thing. It's the equivalent of having your closet door open, or having like your closet door like creaked open, like where there's a crack and it's barely open, and you think you see something in the sill, you think you see something in the dark when you're a little kid. They take that premise, they take the premise of being scared of what's in the dark, and they make a full movie out of it. It was a great short, and I think that what works out Lights Out is they give an original take on a very unoriginal premise. Not the premise of the lights on and off idea, but just it is essentially your average horror film where there's a monster hunting people have to stop the monster. Classic horror movie stuff. You have the attractive female, you have the boy that no one believes at first, and you have, the boyfriend who's either usually a really big a-hole or very supportive. In this case, he's a very supportive boyfriend, but it's how they do it, and they establish that there's at least some character, and you care about what's going on while still being scared, because they have this family story with Maria Bello as the mother, and they have this backstory to what this thing actually is. And I won't give away too much spoilers because the movie is still kind of new, and if you haven't seen Lights Out, please check it out because it's very well done. It's very scary. It's one of those things where I feel like if you're not a fan of horror movies, Lights Out is the horror film to check out this summer. I would send you to The Conjuring 2, but I think The Conjuring 2 leans more towards the you should be a fan of horror film side than the first film does. The first film felt like a standalone, really well made, really well shot movie that happens to be scary. Lights Out is more towards that, where it's just, oh, that's a really good, well made film that also happens to scare the piss out of you. So, I give Lights Out an A. Alright, well, thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. I would review Jason Bourne, but I really don't want to because I really did not like that one. I didn't feel like recording a Jason Bourne review. That being said, it sucks if you really cared. Also, be sure to follow me on the social media sites. Link to Movie Mania Podcast down below. Join us next week on that podcast when we talk Suicide Squad, along with, you may know her as Alicia Malone. She will be on the show next week. But I guess I should talk about also what's coming up next. Of course, I'll be reviewing the Suicide Squad. I'll be reviewing Suicide Squad. But I'm also working on a film. I'm also working on a review, kind of a rant, if you will, on what exactly a movie critic is, and why I think more of us out there are movie critics than we would like to admit. So I feel like the word movie critic has a stigma that does not belong, and that'll be out soon enough. And speaking of film, I am actually working on a short film, which I think I've brought up before. It's a Star Wars short film, and we're currently working on it. I may or may not include a little clip of it here. In fact, I'll probably do that right now. Catch you all later, and as always, see you behind the mic.